The concrete doesn't care about your 401k. It doesn't care that you spent 35 years hauling freight across the Midwest, or that you once owned a three-bedroom house in Indiana with a manicured lawn. Right now I'm sitting on a grease-slicked cardboard pallet behind a 7-Eleven on Mango Avenue in Cebu City. The air is a thick, suffocating soup of diesel fumes, rotting mangoes, and the kind of humidity that makes your skin feel like it's permanently covered in plastic wrap. My legs are swollen. Edema, the doctors back home would call it, stretching the skin of my ankles until it shines like glass. I'm wearing a salt-stained Indiana Truckers t-shirt that's seen better decades, and I'm staring at a shattered phone screen in my hand. I have $4.12 left to my name. That's it. $4.12. It's sitting in a local Gcash account that I can't even access because the touchscreen on this piece of junk is dead. It's just a glowing, useless brick in my pocket. 18 months ago, I stepped off a plane at Mactan International with $450,000. $450,000. My house, my retirement, every mile of asphalt I ever swallowed. It was all right there in my bank account. I thought I was walking into a dream. I thought I was finally becoming the king I was told I deserved to be. Look at me. Really look at me. I'm waiting for the back door of that Jollibee across the alley to creak open. I'm waiting for a teenager to throw out the pag, the recycled scraps of fried chicken scraped off the plates of people who actually have a life. That's my dinner. That's what nearly $500,000 buys you if you're a fool like I was. I thought I was buying peace. I thought I was buying a sunset that would never end. But the truth is, I just bought a front row seat to my own slow, humid execution. Don't turn this off. Don't look away because you think you're smarter than me. I used to think the same thing while I watched those Retire in Paradise videos in my lonely apartment. I'm the ghost of the future you're currently planning. Listen close, because I'm going to tell you exactly how a man goes from a king to a beggar in a country that smiles while it eats you alive. I didn't just wake up one day and decide to throw my life into a wood chipper. It was a slow rot, the kind that starts in your bones and works its way out. Before I was a beggar in Cebu, I was a ghost in Gary, Indiana. 35 years. That's how long I spent behind the wheel of a Peterbilt, swallowing miles of gray asphalt like it was oxygen. If you've never hauled freight across the Midwest in February, you don't know what black and white really means. It's a world of slush-colored skies, diesel fumes that coat the back of your throat, and the constant rhythmic vibration of 18 wheels that eventually becomes the only heartbeat you recognize. My back is a road map of every pothole between Chicago and St. Louis. Every morning was a ritual of ibuprofen and a prayer that I could stand up straight long enough to climb into the cab. I had a house once, a 3-bedroom suburban box with a lawn I spent my only free Sundays mowing. But after 2 divorces, that house wasn't a home. It was just equity. To my ex-wives, I was a direct deposit. To my kids, well, the phone only rang when a car transmission blew out or a tuition check was short. I was a disposable paycheck with a receding hairline. In America, once you hit 60 and your back gives out, you become invisible. People look through you at the grocery store. You're just a guy in a stained jacket buying a single-serve microwave lasagna and a 6-pack of cheap light beer because eating it alone in a silent apartment is easier than acknowledging the crushing weight of the quiet. I was tired, man. Not the kind of tired a nap fixes. I was soul tired. I looked at my life and saw a countdown clock. I had $280,000 in equity sitting in that house, and a 401k I'd bled for. $170,000 after I took the early exit hit. $450,000. To you, maybe that sounds like a lot. To me, it was the price of my literal blood, sweat, and spinal fluid. It was my get-out-of-jail-free card. Then I saw him. Some guy on YouTube, tanned, smiling, sitting on a white sand beach in Dumaguete with a drink in his hand and a girl on his arm who looked like she'd stepped off a travel poster. He told me I could be a king. He told me that for $1,000 a month, I could have respect, warmth, and a woman who actually craved the wisdom of a man like me. Wisdom. That's a real nice word for bank account, isn't it? But back then, under those flickering fluorescent lights in Indiana, I believed him. I wanted to believe him. I was so goddamn lonely I would have believed a snake if it promised me a hug. I sold the house. I cashed out the retirement. I signed my name on the dotted line and walked away from 35 years of dignity because I was tired of being cold and invisible. I thought I was escaping the gray. I didn't realize I was walking straight into a furnace. Listen to me. When you're that hungry for a little bit of warmth, you don't notice when the fire starts to smell like your own skin burning. It started with a blue light in a dark room. You know that glow? The one that hits your face at 2 a.m. when the rest of the world is asleep and you're scrolling through lives that aren't yours? I was sitting in my kitchen, the linoleum floor cold under my feet, staring at a guy on a YouTube channel called Retire in Paradise. He was sitting on a white sand beach in Dumaguete, wearing a linen shirt that probably cost more than my first truck. He had a coconut in one hand and a girl on his arm who couldn't have been a day over 22. She was looking at him like he'd personally invented the moon. He looked at the camera, flashed a tan that screamed, "I don't have a boss," and told me I could be a king. $1,000 a month, he said, leaning in like he was sharing a secret meant only for me. That's all it takes to live a life of luxury. Out here, Artie, well, he didn't know my name yet, but he was talking to me. Out here, these women don't care about your age. They crave the wisdom and the stability of an older Western man. They value tradition. They value a provider. Wisdom. God, that word tasted like honey. After 35 years of being treated like a piece of machinery that was slowly breaking down, someone was telling me my gray hair was an asset, not a liability. I wasn't an old man in the Philippines. I was a premium asset. I started doing the math on a greasy napkin. $280,000 from the equity in the Indiana house. Another $170,000 from cashing out the 401k. And yeah, the IRS took their pound of flesh in early withdrawal penalties, but I didn't care. I was looking at $450,000, nearly $500,000. In Gary, Indiana, that's a decent retirement if you're careful. In Cebu, according to the guys in the forums and the gurus on the screen, that was never work again money. That was generational wealth. I convinced myself I was being smart. I told myself I was arbitraging my life. I sold the house in 3 weeks. I sold the truck. I gave away the furniture. My kids didn't even ask why I was leaving. They just asked if I'd already sent the final check for the grandkids' private school. That was the final push I needed. I bought a one-way ticket to Mactan, Cebu International. I remember standing in the terminal at O'Hare, looking at the snow piling up on the tarmac, clutching my passport like it was a winning lottery ticket. I felt like I'd beaten the system. I thought I was escaping the cold, gray trap of an American old age. I didn't realize I wasn't the hunter in this scenario. I was the bait. And I was walking right into the mouth of a sun-drenched meat grinder with a smile on my face and $450,000 in my pocket. The moment that plane door opened at Mactan International, the air hit me like a hot, wet towel soaked in jasmine and diesel. It was thick, heavy, and smelled like life. Back in Indiana, the air always felt thin, like it was rationing itself out to you. Here, It was a feast. I stood on that tarmac and took a breath that didn't hurt my chest for the first time in a decade. I looked at the palms swaying in the distance and I felt it, that sudden, intoxicating surge of relevance. In Gary, I was a ghost. I was the guy who stayed in the right-hand lane and kept his mouth shut. In Cebu, the moment I stepped into a taxi, I was Sir. Not just a polite sir, but a sir with weight. A sir with possibilities. I had $450,000 in my pocket, and in this city that didn't just make me comfortable. It made me a monument. I didn't go to the red light districts. I wasn't looking for the neon-soaked chaos of Mango Square. I thought I was too smart for that. I wanted traditional. I wanted the dream the YouTube gurus sold me. The shy, hard-working girl who would value a man for his stability. I found her in a small beachfront bar in Mactan. Her name was Jasmine, 24 years old, wearing a simple waitress uniform, her hair tied back, eyes downcast. She wasn't some girl in a bikini. She was a girl who looked like she'd never had a break in her life. When she brought me my San Miguel, her hand trembled just a little. She looked at me like I was a mountain of gold, and God, I loved it. I leaned into it like a man freezing to death leans into a furnace. Within 2 weeks, I moved us into a high-end condo in IT Park, $1,800 a month. Back home, that's a mortgage on a 4-bedroom house. In Cebu, it's a glass palace overlooking the city lights. I was living on the 24th floor, looking down at the world I used to belong to, thinking I'd finally ascended. I started cashing out the checks. I bought her a new iPhone, the Pro Max, the one that cost more than she'd make in a year of waitressing. I watched her cry when she opened the box. She called me her hero. You ever had a beautiful woman call you a hero while she's holding your hand in a luxury mall? It's a drug more potent than anything a pharmacy can give you. Then came the family debts. Just small things at first. A few $100s to pay off a loan shark bothering her mother. $500 to get her brother's motorcycle out of hock so he could work. I did it gladly. I was the American provider. I was the man who made problems disappear. I felt like a king dispensing favors to his subjects. I'd look at my bank balance, $440,000, $435,000, and tell myself it was a drop in the bucket. I was buying a lifetime of loyalty for the price of a used Camry. Listen to me, and listen good. Your ego is a much bigger thief than any pickpocket in a third-world country. I wasn't paying for her family's debt. I was paying for the way she looked at me when I handed over the cash. I was buying a version of myself that didn't exist back home. I thought I was the one in control because I held the wallet. I didn't realize that as long as I was the provider, I was the one being provided for. I was the product. And Jasmine? She was the best salesperson I'd ever met. She didn't have to ask for a dime. She just had to show me how much she needed me, and I'd trip over myself to empty my pockets just to keep that look in her eyes alive for one more night. You ever see a professional gambler bleed a mark? They don't take your shirt all at once. They take a button, then a sleeve, then the collar, until you're standing there shivering and wondering when the draft started. That was Jasmine. Only she didn't use cards. She used our future. It started with the villa. We were standing on a stretch of white sand in Panglao, Bohol. The air tasted like salt and hibiscus, and the water was a blue I didn't think existed outside of Photoshop. Jasmine leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered about how she wanted a place where we could grow old together, away from the noise of the city. A sanctuary. The price was $185,000. $185,000. In Indiana, that buys you a split level with a cracked driveway. In Panglao, it bought a goddamn palace. "Artie," she said, looking at me with those wide, wet eyes, "you know the law. Foreigners can't own the land. But it's okay, because I am yours. The house is yours in my heart." I didn't even blink. I handed over the $185,000. I signed the papers that put 100% of the title in her name. I told myself I was being a protector. I thought I was anchoring my soul to paradise. In reality, I was just paying for the stage where my own execution would take place. Then the emergencies started. You're doing the math in your head right now, aren't you? You think you'd see it coming. But when a woman you've shared a bed with for 6 months starts shaking because her father is allegedly dying of a blocked artery, you don't ask for a spreadsheet. You ask for a pen. She told me he needed a double heart bypass. Private hospital, Cebu City. I paid the cousins who brought the bills. $55,000 straight into a private account. $55,000. I felt like a god, saving a man's life. I didn't know the hospital was a shell, and the bills were printed at an internet cafe. I was cashing out my 401k to pay for a ghost surgery. But the real kicker? The sorry logistics fleet. That was my idea, or so I thought. She played me like a fiddle. She knew I was a trucker. She knew I missed the hum of a diesel engine. She suggested we buy 3 delivery trucks for her brother to manage. A legacy for us, she called it. I sank $110,000 into those trucks. $110,000. I imagined them roaming the islands, a silver and chrome testament to my wisdom. The trucks were never bought. That money went straight to a gambling ring in Mindanao where her brother spent his nights. And then there was the burn. You don't realize how fast $5,500 a month disappears when you're playing the big American. Every dinner was on me. Every cousin's birthday, every fiesta, every new dress Jasmine saw in the Ayala Center. I was burning nearly $6,000 a month just to keep the music playing. I watched my balance drop from $450,000 to $200,000, then $100,000. Then $20,000. Listen to me. I saw the numbers. I'm not a total idiot. I saw the red ink. But I was so terrified of going back to that gray apartment in Gary, so desperate to keep feeling like a king, that I convinced myself it was all just startup costs. I was buying my own lie. $1,000 wire transfer at a time. I was a man in the middle of the ocean, drinking salt water because I was thirsty, wondering why I felt like I was dying. If you're watching this and you've got a nest egg, pay attention. When a woman tells you she wants to secure your future by putting your money in her name, she's not talking about your future. She's talking about the one she's going to have after you're gone. I was cashing out 35 years of my life to buy a front row seat to my own disappearance. And the worst part? I thanked her every time I hit send. The ATM at the BDO branch in Tagbilaran makes a specific, mechanical whirring sound right before it spits out the bills. For 18 months, that sound was my heartbeat. It was the sound of my relevance. I walked up to that machine, sweat stinging my eyes, thinking about the $500 I needed for Jasmine's sister's nursing tuition. I slipped the card in, punched the code I knew by heart, and waited for the hum. Nothing. Just a flat digital beep that sounded like a heart monitor going dead. Transaction declined. Insufficient funds. I stared at that screen for a long time. I tried again. 400? Declined. 200? Declined. I felt a cold drop of sweat slide down my spine, and for the first time in that tropical heat, I shivered. I checked the mobile app, my hands shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. The balance read $12.42. I had spent $450,000 in less than 2 years. The king was broke. I took a trike back to the villa, our villa, the $185,000 sanctuary I'd built on a foundation of sand and lies. I just wanted to see Jasmine. I wanted her to tell me it was a mistake, that we'd figure it out together, that the love I'd bought was real enough to survive the poverty. But when I reached the gate, my key wouldn't turn. The lock had been replaced with a heavy industrial deadbolt. I pounded on the wood until my knuckles bled. Finally, the door creaked open. Jasmine stood there, but she wasn't wearing the simple sundress I'd bought her. She looked polished, hard, and entirely indifferent. Standing behind her was a younger Filipino man, shirtless, wearing a pair of expensive sunglasses I recognized as my own. "Jasmine, honey, there's a problem with the bank," I stammered, looking past her at the man. "Who is this? Why are the locks changed?" She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't even look angry. She just looked bored. She looked at me the way you look at a piece of machinery that's finally seized up and isn't worth the scrap metal. "You are an old man, Arthur," she said. Her voice was flat, devoid of the honeyed accent she'd used for months. "Did you really think I loved you? Look at yourself. You are 63. You are tired. You are broken." She leaned against the door frame, and the man behind her put a hand on her waist. "You were a job, Artie, and the job is finished. There is no more money, so there is no more you." I tried to push past her, screaming about the $185,000 I'd paid for that house, about the $110,000 in trucks, about the blood I'd left on the highways of Indiana to pay for her life. That's when the cousin, the man in my sunglasses, stepped forward and shoved me off the porch. I hit the dirt, the wind leaving my lungs in a pathetic wheeze. 2 minutes later, a local police jeep pulled up. The officer didn't ask for my side of the story. He didn't care about the deeds or the bank transfers. He was smiling and shaking hands with the man in my house. He looked down at me, lying in the dust, and tapped his holster. "Vagrancy and harassment, Joe," the cop said, using that generic name they give to every faceless tourist. "The owner of this property says you are trespassing. You have 1 hour to get off this island. If I see you again, you go to a cell. And in this heat, Artie, you won't last a week in our jail." I looked up at Jasmine one last time, hoping for a flicker of regret. She just turned her back and walked inside, closing the door on my life savings, my dignity, and my last shred of hope. The lock clicked. That was the last time I saw the woman I thought was my destiny. Listen to me, you who are sitting in your comfortable chair right now. When the money stops, the music doesn't just fade. It cuts out. And you'll find yourself standing in the dark, wondering how you could have been so goddamn thirsty that you mistook a mirage for an ocean. I wasn't an American provider. I was a harvest, and the reaping was over. The sun is coming up over Cebu now, but it doesn't bring light. It just brings more heat. It's a pale, sickly yellow that turns the smog into a golden cage. I'm looking at my hands, greasy, shaking, the fingernails caked with the grime of a city that has no place for a man who can't pay for his own shadow. Let's do the math. I'm a trucker. I like numbers. Numbers don't lie, even when everyone else does. 35 years of hauling freight. Thousands of nights sleeping in a cab, eating at truck stops, missing birthdays, missing life. That added up to $450,000. That's my life's work. $185,000 for a villa in Panglao that I'll never step inside again. A sanctuary with a deed that has Jasmine's name on it and a lock that says I don't exist. $55,000 for a heart surgery for a man who probably doesn't even have a pulse, paid directly to cousins who are likely laughing into their beers at a karaoke bar right now. $110,000 for a sorry logistics fleet. 3 trucks that don't exist, hauling dreams that never had wheels. And $99,000? That was just the burn. That was the price of the smile, the dinners, the feeling of being Sir Arthur. Final tally, $450,000. Total assets today, a plastic bag with a change of sweat-soaked underwear, a passport with 20 pages of expired stamps that make me a criminal in a country where the police are friends with the people who robbed me, and $4.12 trapped in a glowing brick of a dead phone. I'm an illegal alien now. I'm a TNT, Tay-going Tay-go, hiding and hiding. I can't even afford the flight back to O'Hare. I can't even afford to go back to being a ghost in Gary, Indiana. I was arrogant. I thought I was smarter than the system. I thought I was buying love, but you can't buy love any more than you can buy the wind. I was just leasing a lie. I was so goddamn thirsty for respect that I didn't care if the well was poisoned. I ignored every red flag because I liked the way she looked in the light I was paying for. Listen to me. If you're sitting there right now, looking at your 401k, feeling lonely, feeling invisible, stay home. Buy a dog. Join a bowling league. Do anything but this. In America, you might be a disposable paycheck, but you have your dignity. You have a roof that doesn't belong to a woman who views you as a job. I traded 35 years of hard-earned sweat for a warm sun that burnt me to the bone. I thought I was becoming a king. I ended up as a harvest. Don't be a harvest, because when the money stops, the music doesn't just fade, it cuts out. And a woman who loves your wallet will never, ever let you keep your soul. Now, if you'll excuse me, the back door of that Jollibee is starting to creak, and I'm very, very hungry.